Yo, YouTube, how you guys doing? What's going on? So for today's video, I'm going to be trying something completely different from my usual content, and I'm not really sure how this is going to go, so I'm really going to need your guys' feedback on how you guys feel about this, on whether this is something you like or not. This image that you're seeing right now is something that was sent to me over Discord by a viewer that goes by the name of Doogie. My man Doogie out here made this gigantic ass like this thing took some work. This is basically a gigantic concept. Basically, it's like a gigantic concept thing that goes in depth about my hex rework idea. If you guys have seen the video I've made, if you guys have not seen the video, I can make a link to it. I could like leave a card. I can link it below the video too. I made a video a while back where I gave my idea about how they could rework hexes all together, and it's a really interesting concept. I think it does have some holes in it, and I was really interested in discussion about it, even though there wasn't really too much to be had. But this guy literally threw together this humongous, like, there's so much to this. Like, just take a quick look. Like, there's a lot. Like, this guy spent a long time on this. He went through and like suggested things for every single hex perk. He like discussed everything about it. Like this took a long time and a lot of effort. So I thought it was maybe worth going over and reviewing it. FYI, I have not actually looked through this in depth yet. I kind of glance over it just to like get a general idea for like what it looks like. I maybe looked at like one idea to see if like the person generally was putting out good ideas, you know, and it does seem to be pretty legit. So I'm going to go through this. I'm just going to be kind of reacting to it. I'm not going to overly edit this or anything, just like most of my videos. I'm just going to read through it. I'm going to give my thoughts, and we're just going to kind of react as time goes on. Okay, so I think I'm just going to get started and I'm just going to read this. I think he kind of sums up my idea, but if I feel like I need to add anything, then I just will while I'm reading. Okay, so let's start out. How hex totems currently work. One of 5 dull totems on the map is converted into a lit hex totem for each hex perk ran by the killer, with the exception of Noed and Haunted Ground. While the totem is standing, any killer receives the full effects of the hex perk and is able to acquire tokens to reach said full effect. When the token is destroyed, the entire effect of the hex perk is lost. True. How hex totems would work with the OhTofu suggested change. Each killer would have a designated hex perk slot, which means every killer could only run one hex perk, and the hex perk slot cannot be occupied by a regular killer perk. All 5 totems on the map would become hex totems, and with each destroyed totem incrementally weakening the power of the hex perk. Once the final totem is destroyed, the hex perk will have no effect. That sums up my idea pretty well. Yes, if you guys don't want to watch the whole video, that's essentially my idea that I made a video on, was basically having one dedicated hex slot and then making it so that every killer has a very, very powerful perk, and it gives the survivors more of like a side objective where they want to break totems, not because they're like afraid of Noed possibly existing. It's like every killer is going to be super powerful when the game first starts because of having a strong perk, but then the survivors can take time off of generators to make the killer slightly weaker if they want, or they could just try to power through gens with the killer being ultra powerful, right? The idea of having the killer super strong at the beginning of the match and then survivors having an actual good side objective that actually makes sense is kind of what I like the most about this, although again I know it probably has some holes. So the argument for OhTofu's change. In the current system, a hex perk's effect on gameplay is largely governed by totem spawn RNG. If the hex totem spawns in a place that is quickly noticed by survivors, the effect of the perk is lost before the killer ever gets a chance to utilize it. This killer now has to play the entire match with 3 perks and is left wondering why they even bothered running hex perks in the first place. Yeah, exactly. Conversely, if the hex totem spawns in a location that makes it nearly impossible for survivors to find, looking at you, Hawkins. I love that. Looking at you, Hawkins. The hex perk can feel incredibly overwhelming and oppressive. Furthermore, if the survivors stop doing generators solely to look for the hex totem, the killer has even more match control than they normally would anyways. With this new system, survivors doing totems would always help when it comes to progressing the game. Survivors can weigh risk-reward by deciding to break totems to weaken the killer or by doing generators to escape faster. Survivors also benefit from the change by having not... Well, I think you put a typo here. By not having to scour the entire map to find an impossibly well-hidden totem. Killers benefit by always having some value coming out of their hex perks, since it would be impossible for all 5 totems to be broken right at the start of the match. Killers would be able to make more consistent gameplay strategies based around their hex perk, knowing that it would not be immediately lost. Yeah, this basically sums it up pretty well. That sums up my... There's even like a couple more things that I can throw in there as well, but that's, yeah, he sums it up pretty well. So arguments against my change. Some hex perks like Devour Hope derive much of the fun factor from the wild RNG that accompanies them. Spreading the power of the hex all over the totems in the map would make gameplay with these perks much more dull. Furthermore, without proper design, some perks could still be overly oppressive with 1 to 2 totems left on the map, whereas others could be downright useless after breaking a single totem. I definitely agree with this. And that was one of my biggest concerns about it. Because, like, again, I think this idea is more of just like a fun concept. I don't really think this would ever actually be added to the game. This is something that would take an absolute metric fuck ton of programming changes and just general general change to DBD. It would be like probably one of the biggest changes ever made to the game ever if this actually came in. So this is not really a realistic scenario. Like, I don't actually think they're going to add this, but like if we were going to pretend that it was going to be added, this would probably be my biggest concern, is like every single hex totem that they added would have to be properly balanced, which can sometimes be hard, you know? But it says, in the next section, I'm going to attempt to provide interesting and balanced ways for each hex perk as of the Binding of Kin DLC could be adjusted or reworked to accommodate OhTofu's hex system. I am not a game developer, nor do I claim to be. I'm just a guy who likes Dead by Daylight and enjoys contemplating ways to improve the game. Furthermore, I only have a tenth of the time in the game compared to OhTofu, so he would likely be able to provide much better perk ideas than me. Lastly, I'm not a graphic designer, so I apologize if some parts of this visual are subpar. To be fair, your graphic design is already much better than my dumbass, and also I am a dumbass, so your ideas are probably already better than mine. You don't got to worry about it. But let's hop right in. Okay, so he has every single hex perk here listed. We're going to go through these one at a time, and I'm going to talk about my thoughts on them and whether I think it's a good change, and maybe if I have an idea of something that could be changed, I'll chime in with that as well. Okay, so Hex Blood Favor. The reworked perk is when a survivor is hit with a basic attack, all pallets within a radius of 16 meters of your location are held in place by the entity for 10, 20 seconds, or 10, 50, 20 based on tier, and cannot be pulled down by survivors. Hex Blood Favor has a cooldown of 10 seconds at 5 totems. Oh, so the cooldown gets longer as you break totems. That's interesting. That could definitely work. Like, you could definitely make that work. That would make it so that Blood Favor would exist pretty much. Like, I'm not the whole time. Obviously, they could break all 5. But that would make it so that Blood Favor... Because, like, right now, Blood Favor is such a weird perk because it feels so underwhelming as is. But, like, it feels like... First off, why does it have a cooldown? Well, I shouldn't say why does it have a cooldown. But it does feel like half the time, like, it feels like too weak. But then also, it also feels like it can be broken early. So this kind of does fix it, right? Here, hold on. We'll read. It says, with this change, I think this would be this would still be a lame perk compared to other hex perks. When it comes to making perks that remove options for survivors, you have to be careful as to not make it too overly oppressive. At least at 5, 4, 3 totems, you could actually use the perk to prevent pallet saves, since you won't be on cooldown after the first hit with an M1 killer. I agree. I agree with them completely. I don't like the idea generally of taking away options. I think perks like Bamboozle and Cruel Limits and Blood Favor are generally, in my opinion, not great perks. I just don't like the idea of just taking away options. But if you're going to have a perk like this that exists, this would make it a little bit more consistent. This would make it so that it's not like... It doesn't feel quite as underwhelming, but also it won't get destroyed like immediately, right? Because like that's the issue right now, is it feels like it's hard to get value out of this perk. But then even with it being hard to get value out of it, sometimes you just lose it in like a minute. And then you're just like, well, so much for all that, you know? So this would probably still be one of the shittier hex perks, but it would at least be an interesting one. I feel like it would do generally the same thing, but still be okay. That's a good use of the idea there. Let's see what Devour Hope does. Devour Hope's a big one. I honestly, this was in my opinion the hardest one that I was thinking to do. It says, okay, when a survivor is unhooked more than 24 meters away, gain a token. Each token provides a stacking 5% move speed increase for 20 seconds after a survivor is unhooked. That's... Oh no, I'll keep reading. At 3 tokens, survivors suffer from exposed. At 5 tokens, grants the ability to kill survivors by your own hand. So it's kind of the same. The maximum number of tokens the killer can have is equal to the number of remaining totems in the trial. Huh, that's interesting. Okay. It was tough figuring out how to rework the exposed Mori part of the perk, but I've decided to buff the exposed portion of this perk's power and nerf the Mori portion. Since survivors can potentially recover from being one shot down, I don't think 3 destroyed totems for 3 hooks is a terrible trade-off for survivors, but I may be wrong in this regard. Lastly, in order to work with the other perks I'll mention later on, survivors are not notified that they're facing Devour Hope when one shot downed. I don't think that would ever be possible, that last part. Because I feel like I think the developers now are very strict on that, to the point where like if something happens in the game and there's like a status effect on you, once that gets discovered, it's just kind of a thing. I'm guessing maybe you did something with Noed is why you're saying that. I'm not really sure. I want to say real quick that this is after a survivor is unhooked. You get stacking move speed, which is kind of that's too much. I'll go ahead and say that's too much. 5% move speed is a decent bit. I mean, that's a stack of play with your food. That's like a stack of bloodlust. So hypothetically, if you have like 3 or 4 stacks and somebody gets unhooked, you get 20% move speed. Like, you can be in the middle of a chase, right? Like, you can hook somebody, leave, be in the middle of chasing somebody, have someone unhook across the map, and then get like a massive boost of speed. That's for 20 seconds too. That's kind of a lot. I'm not really sure about that one. I kind of like the idea of current. I'm pretty sure current Devour Hope gives you a speed boost after hooking, right? To like help you get away from the hook. I mean, I would be okay with like maybe this being just that. Like, after an unhook, you get like a stacking move speed. I don't know if after a hook. I don't know if maybe this was like a mistake in your typing and maybe you meant to say hooked instead of unhooked. But if you just changed this to hooked and then maybe took that 20 seconds and made it like 15, if it was like 10, 12, 15 or something, then I think I'd be cool with this. I think this is pretty good. I kind of like the general concept. You're basically making it so that it's really hard, borderline impossible to ever kill people with 5 tokens. It's like a failsafe. It's like if the survivors some reason are super greedy and just refuse to do even a single totem, then you could end up mooring them. But that almost feels like it makes it pointless, right? Like, it almost feels like you could just take out the 5 tokens then, because are you ever gonna get that? Like, I feel like it would be a miracle to ever actually get that, because all they have to do is break 1 totem to avoid it. I mean, I guess hypothetically it's still cool to have there just in case. But I think it does balance out the exposed part, because you have to find and cleanse 3 different totems to get rid of it. And ideally, if this whole hex rework was a thing, I think survivors would be more like, I think they'd be more, what's the word I'm looking for, incentivized to even just break dull totems in general. So I think this would be neat. This definitely could be neat. It would be like a major punishment for you not breaking dull totems, essentially. I think it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. Let's keep going. Haunted Ground. When a totem is destroyed, all survivors suffer from exposed for 40 seconds. Survivors are not informed that they're exposed. Oh, this is why. Oh, being exposed for potentially 5 minutes of a match seemed ridiculous, so I reduced the time of the exposed status effect. For this perk to be viable, survivors can't be told that they're facing Haunted Grounds, or the perk would be useless. Instead, survivors need to decide to destroy more totems to counter Devour Hope, or stop destroying totems to counter Haunted Ground. Experienced attentive players can notice the discrepancy between hooks and one-shot downs, and deduce Devour Hope or Haunted Ground, so I think this works. That's an interesting concept. That's really neat. I see. Haunted Ground was the other one. Devour Hope and Haunted Ground were like the main 2 ones where, like, when I came up with this idea for totems, I was like, I don't know what I would do with those perks. Like, those ones, I don't know. I literally can't even come up with anything. And this is interesting. I'll just go ahead and say, and since this whole thing's hypothetical anyway, in a hypothetical world where the devs would do this and they would like make it so that you didn't see exposed, this would actually be pretty cool, because that's actually how it used to work back in the day. I don't know if you guys know that or not. There didn't used to be the little curse thing that popped up. Like, if you wanted to figure out that a killer had no ed, you just had to pay attention. Like, you'd have to pay attention. You have to see somebody being full health, and you're like, if you see a full health guy go down instantly, and you're going up against like a trapper or something, you're like, wait, was that guy full health? Does this guy have no ed? Like, it didn't pop up and tell you. You had to figure it out on your own, you know? So it kind of makes it similar to that, you know, in a way, which I think is actually kind of interesting. Although that would be kind of harder for new players, because a lot of new players might not know what they're going up against. And I'm not sure if that's a good thing to make the game harder for new players, because I feel like DBD kind of thrives on new players. You know what I mean? But I don't know. Then again, if there was this designated hex perk slot, I feel like you'd be wanting to like learn a little bit about what they do. If that was like, if totems were like this big side objective for Survivor, then I feel like that would probably be a very early learning thing, is learning what all the different totem perks do. So that's interesting. I guess this whole thing is one big hypothetical anyway, because this change is never actually going to happen. So this whole thing is one big hypothetical. So I'll go ahead and say that if they would be willing to do this, that would be really cool and would be really interesting. I think it would lead to more kind of skill gaps with Survivor, where you'd have to pay attention and actually have good awareness to be able to know what you're going up against. So, you know what? Sure. I will say though that this does kind of, the one major complaint that I think you'd get from Haunted Grounds is that Survive with Friends would destroy it. Like, if you're going up against people that were talking to each other, it would literally be one time. Like, you would get one shot down. And then they'd be like, did anyone break a totem recently? And they'd be like, yeah. And then you're like, oh, well, Haunted Ground, don't break anymore, you know? So I think Haunted Ground could be something better. Like, I like Devour Hope, but I think Haunted Ground could be something better. I think something better could happen here. I just don't know what. Let's carry on. Hex no one escapes death. Start the trial with 5 tokens. Every time a totem is destroyed, a token is lost. Each token provides a stacking 4% move speed decrease once the final generator is complete. When a final generator is completed, the entity blocks all totems remaining on them. Ooh, that's spicy. I would hope most of us agree that the exposed status effect what Noed has currently gives is bullshit. With this version of Noed, it's still an incredibly powerful endgame perk that punishes survivors for not doing totems during the trial. Despite having a potential 20% movement speed increase, survivors can still go for fun body block plays and saves instead of just leaving to avoid feeding a camping Noed killer. Killers are incentivized to not camp and hook instead chase survivors with this change, since haste is clearly useless when camping. I mean, bro, you said earlier that you have like the 10th of the hours and shit, but these are some solid, like, I actually think these are some solid ideas. You're 100% right. I agree. Like, I don't necessarily think that Noed's a bad perk. I think like getting a big boost at the end is okay. And I love the idea of like, again, especially with this design, if people get greedy and they don't do totems, they're like, okay, let's just bang out totems, right? Like they're like, okay, the killer might have blood favor or something, so let's just bang out let's just bang out gens and ignore totems and get the hell out of here. Then when they finish the last gen, you get a locked in. I kind of like the idea of it locking in. That's kind of sick. That's kind of cool, dude. A locked in 20% movement speed increase. Dude, that is nutty. That might be stronger than current Noed, to be honest. Like, actually. I mean, it wouldn't be stronger, like you said, it wouldn't be as strong for camping, but it would be super strong for just running around and killing the fuck out of everybody, you know? That is what... I like that in, like, the coolest way. That is something that you would fear. Like, you would not want them to get a lot. But even if they only left, like, 2 totems up, right? Like, what if they broke 3 and left 2? That's still 8% move speed. That's still quite a bit. Like, that's, like, almost permanent Bloodlust, too. That is a lot. So basically, if they leave any totems up on the map, you're like you're fucking Speedy Gonzalez at the end of a game. That's really cool. I like this Noed change a lot. This is a really, 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 really good one. Like, I would love Noed on both Survivor and Killer if this is what it was. That's fucking phenomenal. Good shit. Well done. Okay, Retribution. This is another one that I was kind of not sure what to do with. When a totem is destroyed, the aura of the survivor who destroyed the totem is revealed to you for 60 seconds. Oh, okay, I'm going to read your explanation first. A couple things here. 1, I took the liberty of changing the perk from all survivors to a single survivors for 2 reasons. 1, to make it less similar to worse haunted ground. 2, it prevents new players / sandbaggers from obliterating their entire team if against a killer with major snowball potential like owning your nurse. Another thing, savvy killers can intentionally leave a revealed survivor for a while in order to hide the fact that they're running Retribution. This is interesting. So I like this idea because, again, with perks like Noed and like Devour Hope existing, right? People are probably going to be wanting to destroy totems. Like, people are definitely going to be wanting to destroy totems, because if you don't destroy totems, there's the possibility of this fucking perk existing and then you getting it absolutely destroyed in the end game. So it's kind of like, I feel like Retribution and Haunted Ground both kind of play off of the fact that Noed exists in this hypothetical universe, and I think it's really cool. Although I will say that seeing one survivor's aura for 60 seconds is pretty intense. That's like, if you've ever used I'm All Ears, the perk on I'm All Ears, where someone vaults a window and you see their aura for 6 seconds, or I mean vaults anything really. If they fast vault anything, you see their aura for 6 seconds. If you use that in the middle of a chase, it like almost guarantees, I wouldn't say guarantees a down, but it gives you so much information about what they're doing. Like, if you were playing against, I feel like most killers, if they had like a semi-permanent aura reading on you, like 60 seconds, that almost guarantees that you're downing that survivor. Like, there is no mind gaming, there is no trying to trick them. That is really intense. And maybe that's a good thing. Like, maybe it's a good thing that it's intense, because I mean, I think it should be strong, right? The idea of these hex totems is that they should be strong. So is it too strong? I don't know, especially because it's only one survivor, right? And the one survivor might also be the whole way across the map, right? Like you might be chasing a survivor, almost have them downed, and then someone broke a totem across the map. So it's like, do you bail from that chase and run the whole way across the map to chase the guy that is full health but also aura revealed? Like, maybe it wouldn't be as OP as I think, but that would definitely be fucking brutal in whatever survivor that's being revealed. I think you can maybe lower the numbers a little bit, but that also might just be okay. I mean, pretty good change. I also think it would be okay just to also just make it all survivors for 10 seconds. Like, I think keeping it do like what it did before would also be fine. Seeing all survivors for 10 seconds, that's a nice, like, just like jolt of information to get as a killer, you know? Being able to see at least like the position of where everyone is on the map, even if it wasn't 10 seconds, even if it was like 6 seconds, being able to see where everyone is on the map for like a short period of time really gives you a ton of information that you can then use to like, I don't know, make more decisions later on that could really like help you snowball games and like know where to go. So I think this one's okay, but I also think you didn't even necessarily need to take it down to 1 survivor. I think you could have kept it with all 4, but overall pretty good. Okay, Hex Ruin. If a generator is not being worked on, I feel like this one's the easiest one. I think I already know where this one's going to go, and I can already see by the numbers. If a generator is not being worked on for 5 seconds, oh, you made it so that you have to, okay. The generator begins regressing at a speed based on the number of remaining totems in the trial. 200% speed at 5 totems, 175 at 4. So basically, the more totems that break, the slower it regresses. And the regression, and at 1, the regression effect is removed entirely when all totems are cleansed. Oh, wait, no, never mind. It's 100% at 1. Generators no longer emit sparks when regressing while at least 1 totem remains in the trial. Oh, that ending, though. I wasn't ready for that spicy ending. See, there you've been doing a lot of stuff like this, and this is one that I don't like. Like, normally I like this. Like for instance, the spice at the end of No One I thought was a good spice, right? Like, that's like the Gordon Ramsay came into your kitchen and fucking cooked your chicken for you, and goddamn, that's some good spices. Well done. And this one's like OhTofu comes to your kitchen and tries to help you with your baked salmon, and I dump a bunch of like cinnamon on it because I'm like, yeah, cinnamon salmon is probably gonna be good, and then you're like, Tofu, what the hell are you doing? This is terrible. So that's what I feel about this one. I'm not so sure about this one, mostly just because, again, what I was saying earlier about the new player experience. Let me read what you said first, and then I'll go back to it. This was another tough one. I don't like the whole 15, 10, 5 thing, but we know behavior loves perk tiers, and I wasn't sure how else to implement the tiers without getting super complicated. Oh, that's why that exists. I also toyed with the ideas like allowing killers to still kick gens, amongst other things, to account for the overall nerf, and decided removing sparks would be a way to counterbalance the overall nerf and still keep up with the new theme, making it harder for survivors to guess the hex perk, or yeah, to guess the hex perk the killer's running. Okay, so that's why this exists. That's interesting. I'm going to go ahead and say that this bottom idea is bad. I think as a new player, it would be so confusing. I feel like there's already so many confusing things for a new player, but like that would suck. Like, I feel like that's like a general staple, right? You should be able to like look at a gen. If sparks are flying off it, you're like, oh, that gen's regressing. If there's no sparks flying off it, you're like, that gen is not regressing, right? I think little things like that need to be made like really abundantly clear to new players. Otherwise, the new player experience is going to be miserable. So I'm not a huge fan of that, although I like the rest of it. Like, this was pretty much my idea of like what to do with it. I think I even mentioned, this is one I think I literally mentioned in the video I made. I think I only mentioned maybe 1 or 2, and this might have been one of them. These numbers, now that I know why they exist, it makes sense because you got to have something for perk tiers. I would say make it at tier 3 just 0 seconds. Literally make tier 3 0 seconds. Make tier 2 like 5 and then 10, or maybe not even 5 and 10. Maybe like 2 and 5. Because like 15 seconds is a long time to wait for regression. Even 5 seconds at tier 3 is a decent amount of time. Like, I don't think it's really a problem that it starts regressing right away. So I would just make it at tier 3, 0 seconds, because most people are going to have tier 3 anyway. And then make tier 1 and 2 something like, I don't know, 5 and 2 or 10 and 5. I don't think it needs to be that big. And if you just did that and then got rid of this last part, I still think this would be totally fine. I really don't think it's an overall nerf because you're getting constant regression. They literally have to break all 5 totems for this to stop, which is huge, man. If at any point in the mid game you start snowballing and getting multiple hooks or multiple downs, even if they're making it a point to break totems, they have to literally break all fucking 5, man. If they break 4 out of 5, you still get regression. You literally still get 100% regression. So, like, it's actually like this would be a pretty big buff to Ruin, if anything. Like, Ruin would be pretty nutty. Like, this would be a very strong perk. This would probably be what most people ran. If anything, you might even need to nerf. I almost said nerf it. You might need to nerf it a little bit more, because that would be very strong on killers that are able to snowball and get a lot of pressure in the mid game. Because mid game would be absolutely nuts. But I do like it. I do like it. That was very similar to my idea. I don't like the bottom part, but it's very similar, and I do like it. Okay, third seal. How many more of these go out? We got 4 more. Third seal. Hitting a survivor with a basic attack affects the survivor with the blindness and oblivious effect for 2 minutes. 2 minutes. The maximum number of survivors that can be affected by third seal is equal to the number of totems remaining in the trial. So a maximum of 5 survivors.
says, ugh, this perk is a mess. Blindness is an obnoxious status effect, disproportionately affecting solo queuers running Bond or Kindred and being nearly useless against survivor friends. I had to add the perk tiers and somewhat since the number of afflicted survivors is now tiered to totems, and this means I'm forced to nerf arguably the worst hex in the game. To counteract this, I added the oblivious status effect, and I still think this perk would be really bad, and that's okay because this is a stupid perk with a stupid effect. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think third seal right now is probably one of the dumbest perks. Blindness is such a weird thing because it's like if they're not in comms and also if they have bad awareness, it can be absolutely devastating. But in a lot of situations, it ends up being completely useless. And it's like, I don't know. What do you even do? Honestly, I wouldn't be opposed to this just giving entirely different size effects. Like, I like the idea of slapping Oblivious on people. Like, that's kind of cool. This like, I feel like this kind of turns it into a major, like, you can honestly just even take away the blindness. I guess blindness can stay if you want, but this would actually make it pretty strong. I think you might be underestimating how strong this would be. Because Oblivious for 200 seconds, and this is also like hitting a survivor. So this is a very clear hit and run strat style perk, right? Like you would run this on like, for instance, Wraith. You got him in the background back here. You would run it on someone like Wraith or Ghostface or somebody that has stealth with things like Sloppy Butcher and maybe like Thanatophobia or maybe Nurse's Calling, maybe just Sloppy and Nurse's Calling even. And you would basically hit people. Actually, you wouldn't even need to be a stealth killer because they'd be oblivious. Wow, that would actually make hit and run viable on anybody, as a matter of fact. That defeats the purpose of the stealth killer thing. What am I even thinking? This perk would make it so that you can do a hit and run shot on anybody. Like, you can literally play Bubba. Like, you can play Demo and hit people with, like, Sloppy and Nurses and then leave them, and then they won't have your terror radius, right, for, like, 120 seconds. So you can just, like, hit and run, hit multiple people, and then run around and try to catch them off guard because they're going to be oblivious. This would actually be a pretty interesting perk. I don't think it would be super good, but I think it would definitely fit into a niche playstyle, and I think it would actually get some use. Like, I would make some videos on this. If this existed, I would probably make some videos on this for sure. I would run hit and run killers on killers that aren't conventionally hit and run, and it would be a blast. I actually like this one a lot. I think you think that you made it really bad, but you actually made it quite good. I like that a lot. Touche. All right, Thrill the Hunt. Oh, this is another one. Actually, a lot of these are ones that I'm not really sure what to do with. After chasing a survivor for 20 seconds without scoring a hit or breaking a pallet, gain a token of Thrill the Hunt. The maximum number of tokens you can obtain in a chase is equal to the number of totems left on the map. Each token provides a movement speed increase. Wait, this is just Bloodlust. Behavior should remove Bloodlust and make this its replacement. Oh, yes. Oh man, me and you, man. I think we would get along. I think we would get along on our fucking our stances on things in Dead by Daylight, man. My God, all tokens are lost upon breaking a pallet. So this is literally just Bloodlust. This is just Bloodlust the perk. That's exactly what this is. Except instead of 15 seconds, it's 20, which I think you could just turn that back to 15. Like you could just make it 15 seconds. He said, I decided to kill a bunch of birds with one stone here. Currently, Thrill the Hunt is essentially a worse. Undying, Hex Thrill the Hunt, and Hex Undying for that matter don't work when you can only run one Hex perk. Bloodlust is a dumb, outdated game mechanic. Dude, holy shit. This is amazing. Beginner killers need a simple but effective Hex perk to fill their Hex Totem slot without an onslaught of no ends at low ranks. That's true. This would benefit new players. And Hex Thrill the Hunt is the only totem perk in the game right now that isn't a teachable, right? I'm almost positive, yeah. It's the only non-teachable hex perk. So this would be the go-to for every new player, and I think Bloodlust might be like a solid choice for a new player until they learn the game, right? Or would that be bad because they would become reliant on it? I don't know. Anyway, let's continue. By making Bloodlust a low-tier hex perk that is available to all killers without leveling up their blood web, you can have the only remaining benefits of Bloodlust, aiding newer killers without the main downsides and ensuring people aren't forced to buy DLC or run no-ed to fill their hex slot. I mean, yeah. Oh, yeah, Noed. I forgot about Noed. Oh, yeah. Fucking Noed. All right. Well, yeah. Either way, that's really solid. I like that a lot. That's very, very good. No complaints here. I know a lot of people are going to be like, what do you mean remove Bloodlust? I know that's going to be a whole discussion. If you guys want me to make a video on Bloodlust, I can make another video on Bloodlust. I think I made one on it like years ago. I can make an updated video on Bloodlust if you guys want to hear my opinion, but I agree with your whole sentiment about Bloodlust. I think it's dumb and should be removed. That's another topic for another day. I love this. That's a great change. Another fantastic change. All right, Undying Curse, no longer Hex Undying. Wait, so these are all Hex something, but you change this one's name? Whenever the first Hex totem in the trial is cleansed, none of the effects of the perk in your Hex totem slot are attached in any way. Wait, are you making this no longer a Hex? Is it just not a Hex perk at all? Okay, sorry. Whenever your first Hex totem in the trial is cleansed, none of the effects of the perk in your Hex perk slot are affected in any way. After 60 seconds, the totem that was destroyed reconstructs itself. Only one totem can reconstruct per trial. Survivors within 6 meters of your totems have their aura revealed to you. Interesting. So it's like it's literally just a one-time use perk that just rebuilds one Hex. This would be tied. Okay, let's see what you said. You said, on one hand, I'm really happy with the new Hex Undying announcement on the PTB. On the other hand, this is a Hex perk designed to protect your other Hex perks, so it either has to have a completely different function or it can't be a Hex anymore. Having a Hex perk to defend itself is somewhat ridiculous. I thought about making Undying a vision perk with the totem's auras, but decided against it. Since dedicating a perk slot to protect your Hex is a neat idea as long as it's properly balanced. With this rework, Undying is basically the same as it is now, just adjusted to accommodate the new system. It's also slightly buffed since the aura reading stays until all totems are destroyed. Yeah, this is pretty solid. I kind of like this. This is still like I mean, would this be too strong though? I almost feel like the aura reading might be a little bit too strong. Because I feel like if you really wanted to just like protect your totems, I mean, is there any totems that are that big of a deal to protect though? I don't know. Like, I feel like if you really wanted to like protect maybe like your last ruin or something, combining it with this might be really strong because you would see every single time they work on it. But then again, that would take up 2 perk slots. So maybe that's okay. The idea of your totem reconstructing itself, I don't know. When I first read that, I was like, but then the more I think about it, like, I guess as long as people know this exists, then people would like maybe think of, oh, let me go back and check that totem that already broke. You know what I mean? So I don't know. That's kind of interesting. I guess I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. Like I feel like something else could be done, but I don't have the something else. I don't have the good idea. So I think maybe something else could be done. I just don't really know what. And then on to the very last perk, we have Lullaby. Start the match with 5 tokens. Each destroyed totem removes 1 token. Is this just? I think I already know what it's going to be. 5 tokens. Survivors do not have a skill check warning sound. Yeah, incremental increases between warning sounds. So it's basically current Lullaby, except you start with 5 stacks and then removing totems takes them away. Middle skill checks add an additional 2, 4, 6 regression penalty. Yeah, this is just Huntress Lullaby but backwards. And he said, I honestly forgot this perk existed. That's why all the other perks are in alphabetical order, and I'm not doing this entire diagram all over again for this useless perk. Hey, this perk isn't entirely useless. You can get some interesting builds with this, one like Doctor and shit. Anyway, by front-loading this perk, start with 5 totems, you could actually get some value out of it at the start of a match, because how often do you get Lullaby up to the 5 token threshold ever? That's not to mention it only works on streamers reading their chat in the first place. The perk still isn't good with these changes, but at least it's better than being overly oppressive in my opinion. Yeah, I agree. I think the whole idea behind this whole Hex rework is that killers get their strength right away. Like right when the match starts, when the killers are at their weakest, survivors have no pressure on them. They're all free to work on gens. Every single pallet is still up on the map. Like right now in the current Dead by Daylight, the start of a match is like when the killer is at his very, very weakest and survivors are at their very, very strongest. So having these Hex perks be completely flip-flopped and have them being strong early on and getting weaker just like this, it would just be so good. It would give you the strength of the perk right away, and then you can kind of get off to a better start of your match. I mean, hell, if you're running something crazy like double calm Doctor with like unnerving presence and you know, you're making everyone's skill checks super small and they also have no sound, this could work really well. You can end up getting a lot of early game pressure, right? Especially if you get a small map like the game. Actually, the more I'm thinking about that, that sounds fucking miserable to play against. That sounds absolutely miserable to go against. But it would be strong. Like it would be strong in the early game. And then you could make it go away. Like you could just break totems and it would slowly go away. So I don't know. I think these are all really good. I like this a lot. Overall, I think you did a really, really, really good job of going through the totems and figuring out ways to rework them. There's definitely some things that I would change, and I think I've already talked about them, but I think this is overall really, really well done. I'm actually really impressed with this. There's some really fucking solid ideas in here that I think could work really well. Now, again, none of this is actually going to come to the game, which is a shame, because I sat here and read this for the past like 10 minutes, and now I'm just like super excited about all these potential things that could exist, even though they never will, which is kind of a shame. But yo, I love this. This was really, really good. Thank you again, Doogie, for taking the time to put this all together. This was a really great read, and I think you have some really good. I think you have some really good ideas. I think you're a little hard on yourself in this beginning, where you're talking about how you don't have a lot of time and how I could give better ideas, because I couldn't give better ideas. I straight up could not give better ideas. These were really, really good. I can maybe tweak your ideas a little bit, but these were some really, really solid ideas to come up with. And I'm sure this took a long time to make, and I appreciate it. Thank you, man. This was good to do. I had a fun time. I had a fun time doing this. I hope you guys had a fun time watching and listening to this. If you guys have any ideas, if you have anything that you want to add to this, if you want to have any like discussions in the comments, please leave a comment. Go ahead and leave a comment about like whatever changes you think might be bad or might be good, or what changes you would make, because I'm really curious to hear about it. Let me know how you guys feel about this type of video. I would be totally open if you guys like this kind of video. I would be totally open to maybe opening up the idea of doing more, where maybe people submit their ideas, even if it's like a new chapter idea, right? Maybe people can submit their ideas for a whole new chapter of like a new killer, a new power, 3 perks for them, and I can go through and talk about what would make them good, what would make them bad, what would be broken about it, what would be good about it. If this is something you guys are actually interested in listening to and watching, let me know. I would totally be down to do this more. If it's something that you don't like, let me know that as well. Whether you let me know through a comment or like a dislike on the video. I think the dislikes on this video are going to be just as important as the likes, because I really need to know how you guys feel about this if I'm going to make it like regular content. Thank you guys for watching though. Hope you guys enjoyed this. I don't think I have much else to say. This was a phenomenal idea. There wasn't really too much to pick apart. I liked most of it. I liked like 90 to 95% of this. I thought it was a really great concept. There were some fucking solid ideas in here. And yeah, I think that's it. So let me know what you guys think. Like it if you liked it, dislike it if you disliked it. Subscribe to the channel, please, because I'm uploading literally daily. And also, I'm live on Twitch 6 nights a week over at twitch.tv/OhTofu. So feel free to stop by and say hello. And thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys have a good rest of your night. I'm out of here. See ya. Take care. See ya. I'm out of here. See ya. See you later. See ya.